Welcome to episode 4 of Coders Talk, and this is Billy.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so why don't you just introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay, I'm Billy. Let's see, I don't know where to start. I guess I could say I'm a software engineer. I work here in Roseville, or we're in Rockland, but I work in Roseville, which is not too far away. I work at a small company. It's about 150 employees, but my dev team is about 5 people right now.
Oh, wow.
And it's a financial consulting and legal referral. It's kind of like an employee benefits provider.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever join like a big company where like they outsource like a 401k or whatever, they have some sort of like third party handling that. So what we do, we handle that part for these employers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So is it like heavy security based? You have to know a lot about security and code to do that?
Actually, yeah, we do. Because, well, for us, we don't store any private information.
Okay,
so that's all on the employers. So all we do is for our security. How is that handled? I don't deal too much with the security, but I know that we do have like a server that exists on site for more of the sensitive information.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not quite sure on that.
Okay, cool. I assume because it's like kind of like financials and stuff.
Yeah, the financial part of it is like we don't handle accounts or any type of transactions, so we're not like part of that regulation part of it. Because when I say like financial consulting or coaching, it's basically where like a end user will call in or like they'll schedule an appointment, and then we have like financial coaches who basically go over with them for like retirement or budgeting or something, and they just talk about their finances and like help them reach their goals.
Yeah, so more of like a counseling service.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
exactly,
cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. And then okay, so the question I asked everyone, what got you into programming?
Oh man, I don't really know. I just enjoy it. So it's like I don't know. I guess I could start how I got into it.
Yeah.
I guess so. I was working right after I got out of the military. I was working for this data center, and I was doing HVAC, which is like heating and ventilation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they would have me babysit like contractors because they're not allowed to touch, or whenever they're working around like servers or anything like that. These are like big customers like eBay and sometimes Amazon, so they don't want them like working around and damaging the equipment.
Okay,
so they will need someone like me, like just babysit them and watch them.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't touch anything and help them out or anything. So they told me like, okay, you just gotta stand there and watch them. Like, okay, whatever. Like, So I just been listening to a bunch of podcasts, and at the time I was listening to a lot of entrepreneurial one, and I got into like marketing. So I started a WordPress website, try to get some e-commerce going on, affiliate marketing. And then I was just like, why are these people creating these like plugins, like and they're like making tons of money. And so I ended up taking a really cool course. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's on EDX. It's called CS50 by the Harvard University. And there's a really great professor that teaches it. And I got hooked in right away.
Yeah.
But the only problem was that it was all based in the terminal. Like the first 4 weeks, it was just all terminal. So like,
terminal.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I understand like how to use the terminal, but it was like it wasn't very satisfying just like to see me print some bunch of words on the in the terminal. So I was like, oh gosh. And then I ended up moving out to Sacramento because the girl I was with at the time, she came and she found a job here.
Yeah.
So I moved in with her, and then that's when I got into like free code camp. And then that's when I started learning like web development and started that whole thing.
That's cool. So did you use any other like resources like Udemy, or you kind of stuck to like free code camp and doing the encapsulated code and having it run by the side?
Yeah, so I think I actually first started out with Code Academy.
Yeah.
So I started with Code Academy, but it was, I felt like it was a little too easy because I would just like punch it in, it would just tell me what to do, and I would just like
do it.
So, but Free Code Camp for me, I did kind of just use that as my main resource to learn. Because it kind of like took off like the handlebars. Like as soon as you got into the front end projects, where you're creating like a weather app or like a Wikipedia viewer, just like, all right, go out there and be a developer. And one of the core principles that they want to teach you is like, read, search, and then ask. Mm-hmm. So basically, you have to go out there and find the information yourself.
Yeah.
And then if you can't find it, like utilize different resources. So they have like forums. Here we have a local community. Just basically just read tutorials or whatever. So it kind of gets you into that mindset of like, okay, how do developers like actually work, like modern developers? Because before, you might get some old timers that are like, oh, like Stack Overflow, blah 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 blah. Like these developers today are like the same anymore. But there's so much information out there that like, and it's hard to keep track or remember everything. So
it is,
that's what Free Code Camp helped.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's so cool. Yeah, and then when did you like transition over to actually like practical coding like in Sublime or VS Code? Like, how did you make that transition? Because that's always difficult to do. Like, I didn't know about Sublime at all.
Yeah, I think it was like I've always been attracted to like configuration for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I always start out projects with just like, okay, let's go Webpack. Like, let's just build everything, load them load modules and everything like that. Yeah. But I just remember, going from like CodePen and then moving over to like Atom. I think I went to Atom first and then VS Code. The problem I was having with CodePen was that I was having like a lot of issues with cores and that like the cross-origin policy stuff like that, and I didn't understand that at the time. And I was getting these errors in the Chrome DevTools, and I was like saying like boomerang or whatever. I'm like, what's going on? Because I just didn't understand it, so I thought I had to do something with CodePen. And so that's when I started like developing on Atom.
That side of it. Yeah. Cool. And then did you have to figure out how to like include like links like Bootstrap and stuff, because CodePen does all that for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like taking off the training wheels and just going full-fledged.
Yeah. I think the way that I did it was like, I don't know, I felt like I had a little good grasp on how all these things were like tied in together. Yeah. And so, like, I kind of knew what to do automatically when I got into, like, transition from CodePen to Atom or VS Code.
Okay.
And the problems that I was having with those when I started writing my own coding or my own code, like pulling those different libraries, it was more about, like, just coding stuff, like using JavaScript and manipulating the DOM and then just having it, and render it how I wanted it to.
Yeah.
So that was the problem that I had and the frustrations.
So you mentioned CodeCamp, and do you want to explain a little bit of your involvement in that community?
Yeah. So what Free Code Camp, if your viewers don't know, it's basically like an online learning platform, and it's a nonprofit that's based out of San Francisco. And the founder of it, Quincy Larson, he kind of just pushed for like open source because he didn't have the money or anything like that. And what it is he really pushed for community-driven like events. Yeah. And so he went on podcasts, he went to, talks or whatever, where he just kind of like promoted. And so what ended up happening was you started to see like all these people from all over the world start contributing to this Free Code Camp. It's like one of the largest repositories on GitHub.
Cool, yeah.
And so they're like, providing all this they're just tying up all these courses, making it better and better and better. And then like you have people like me who are like kind of local chapter leaders, I guess. Yeah. And we just volunteer and we just kind of say like, hey, I want to see a community out here. Let's go ahead and start, getting some events together.
Yeah.
And so how I kind of came into that role was kind of funny because I was going through Free Code Camp and I was going through like one of the algorithms and I'm just like, man, this thing is just like, I do not get this.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Facebook group. At the time it was like inactive and I just asked like, hey, does anybody want to go to a coffee shop?
Yeah.
And I think it was a female who kind of just said, hey, why don't you just create an event and then see if people will show up?
Yeah.
And so I had my first event at Tupelo's and it was like 6 people who showed up.
Yeah,
cool. And the very first night we were there, he's a very good friend of mine now. His name is Yvonne. He spent like I only scheduled it for 2 hours, but after the 2 hours was over, like he spent like the next 4 to 6 hours. I can't remember, but until like almost closing, where he just kind of like laid it out for me, like JavaScript and the whole frameworks. Like I was having, everyone get the confusion between like what's the library, what's the framework,
Yeah.
So he kind of like explained it all to me. I was like, wow, this is amazing, and. Something about that night that really just resonated with me. It's like, wow, this is really, really awesome. Like, I want other people to experience this.
Absolutely.
So I started continue to organize these events. And over time, like, I was just thrown into the role of like, hey, you got Free Code Camp and, just take it from there. I'm like, I was not expecting this, right?
Yeah.
And so like people see, they look at me and they're like, oh, you're a free co-camper. I'm like,
you are though. That's how
I
you're
guess.
viewed,
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone knows who you are in that community.
Yeah,
they do.
And I guess, it's nice to have it, but I want to empower people to basically like, that's why I started looking for other organizers to kind of just, build what I've experienced, right? Here in like, especially in like Roseville, because usually my events are around rush hour. No one has time to drive from here to like, and try to make it by 6 p.m. going down to Sacramento.
Exactly.
And so I started asking people like, hey, do you want to organize your community? And like several people started like raising their hands. I'm like, all right, let's get this going. Let's do this. So I started like having team meetings and doing all these things and try to like help them and support them. And then, that's basically where it's at right now. So I think like right now there are
so many meetups.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's happening every week. So
it is. Yeah. I go to one almost every single week at Tupelo. On Thursdays at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
We take up the huge table. And someone who's taken over the leadership for that group is Cliff. He's awesome. He's so helpful. And there are tons of people there too who want to talk about code, who want to talk about getting a job in the industry, and it's a really positive environment.
That's what I like about Free Code Camp is because like you get these people together who are like aiming for the same goal, right? They're all just hacking away and they're just trying to learn. And I think like that's where you most need the most help. It's like when you're first starting out, like you need a shoulder to lean on because like you don't know how to navigate this world. Someone that might be like just a little ahead of you in Free Code Camp, like it might be the motivation for you to keep going, right? Because I feel like a lot of times I've seen it happen over and over again where people, they get down to HTML, they get down to CSS, they come to JavaScript and they get to the algorithm section and they're just like, I don't understand this, and then they just walk away, and I it's unfortunate that it happened, but because programming is hard, but that's why I think these communities exist. It's because like you're trying to support each other and trying to, you're growing too, like together. When I first started out, I call them like the regulars, like the OGs or whatever. So like we're all friends. Like, to this day, we all still hang out like outside of Free Code Camp, right? And I feel like I think when Michelle was running it at the time, like I could start seeing, I could start seeing that for her. Like man, you started having all these like these people, regulars that come together, and you're like a family now, and it's that community, and it's very. To me, it was something that I wanted other people to have. And the network, the friendship that you make, it's amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't feel like coding, but you're like, hey, I can't, I don't want to not show up. I still want to go. And then when you get there, you're like, okay, I'm excited about code again. I can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so positive.
It is a very positive environment to learn. And I try to make it as safe and friendly as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
And I try to enforce that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just. But everyone that comes through the door, they have like no ill intention anyway. They're all there to learn. Yeah. Which is amazing.
Yeah, and one thing about these like meetups too is that sometimes people won't even be working on Free Code Camp, the website. They'll just come in with their own projects, or even my friend Francisco, he's behind the camera today. He comes and he helps some of the newer people because he has several years of experience, and he's actually at work while he's there because he works remote.
Oh, nice. One day that's mine. Just work remotely.
Exactly.
Then I can do Free Code Camp stuff all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I do see a lot of that happening where you have more experienced people. They just come and they just show up and they just want to hang out. And it's really nice to have that kind of support by senior developers, so people who have years of experience and kind of just like lay it out like, someone that's like doesn't really know what they're talking about, but you don't want to get that misinformation because it's easy to get lost in that, right? But you have like a more experienced developer that comes up and they just tell you like, how it is, like like my friend Yvonne. I was like, man, this is legit. This is really awesome. So that I hope it make people want to come back for more.
Yeah, I think it does because there are a lot of people who I've seen like come again and again and again, and they do love that environment. Let's talk a little bit about the technologies that you work with.
Like for professionally at work or in my personal.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I So at work, I use the merge stack. So Mongo, Express, React, and Node.
That's what I just learned in bootcamp.
Yeah. It's a very formal like tech stack. So it's easy to implement. It works pretty much really well for like a front end and just a little bit of back end. We don't write too much back end. We just use the Express for the web framework part of it. But other than that, like I really like the merge stack. At home, I do write that, but I guess I like using, because at work, even though that tech stack is all JavaScript, right? We don't necessarily use one standard like CSS framework. So one thing we might use is like Boma, which is a really great like CSS framework. It's very lightweight, and we have other applications that use like Bootstrap. I don't like neither of them because like I said, I like to configure things. Yeah. So so what I've been trying to do is like learn something called Storybook, which is how to build like it's called a design system, right? So a design system is basically where you take components, or whatever you want to call it, because I write React when I'm at home. Yeah. You take components and you try to break it down into the most basic element that it can be, which is kind of like like a button, right? Yeah. And then you just structure it and make it like a skeleton, right? Okay. Yeah. And then you apply the UI on top of that later on. So like that's what I've been learning. It's like having a design system so that that your designs across every single web page looks very consistent. So like the font, the heading, and like how everything are grouped. Yeah. And that's how basically like Bootstrap and Boma look like. So you put things together, you do like button group and then button, and then just basically all automatically just does its magic, right? To format like the padding and everything. So I've been learning how to do that. And then with Storybook, what it is like it's a place where you can create like your components and test them in isolation. And so you can have like different, like I said, you can have a button, and then you can say like, okay, I have a large, medium, or small, whatever, and then you can have it render like that, and then you can put some like text in it, and then make sure it renders that way. So it does all that.
That's kind of cool.
So I've been learning that, and as far as like the CSS part, I'm working with CSS in JS. I'm not sure if you heard of that. No. But it's basically writing your styles in JavaScript. Okay. So using it's popular, like template libels, I don't know, whatever, the little backticks, right? Yeah. So what I'm using is called Emotion JS, which is a really cool, I guess, library. You're creating like style components. Okay. So what style components is basically you write it all in JavaScript. So you write your CSS properties, your rules in JavaScript.
In the file or in?
Okay. Yeah, just in a JavaScript file.
Oh, they're kind of like React Native. Like they put all their styling inside. Yeah.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
It's like at the bottom, and then you like call the style within the component.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm doing that just because like I want to have a better understanding of like how to architect things. Yeah. And I guess that's where I'm at, where I'm in my learning journey in coding right now. It's just like, how do I just design these systems so that like it's consistent and most efficient and effective? Yeah. And that's what I've been playing around a lot at home. It's just basically like style components and just like building better components. Yeah. I haven't messed around with React 16 yet because at work we use React 15. So I haven't messed around with like the context API or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Or like all the new stuff. Yeah, like
do you guys use Redux?
Yes.
Okay, you do use that. Okay.
So we use Redux at work, and that's fun.
Yeah, I haven't used it yet, but
okay. Yeah, you're gonna learn a lot.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
Cool. So from what you said, do you think you're interested in like design?
I
more like just putting code into like little components, like the structure of it.
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'm leaning more towards like front end development. Yeah. I like the whole idea of like pixel hunting or something. I don't know, like just mess around like in animations, like beautiful animations. If I can actually apply it, that'd be really cool to do because I think that like it's all flashy. Right?
Yeah, it is.
For the back end, I definitely I'm interested in learning. Using the file system, writes out and like reading all this stuff. I don't know too much about back end. But it does interest me, but not as much as like front end because like I get the immediate feedback to what I'm doing, right?
Exactly.
Especially when you have something like hot module reloading, where it just like your changes are quickly seen as soon as you save. Like it's nice to have that immediate feedback,
exactly.
Right? So I think for me, I'm doing the whole design, like the building the components, like breaking it down, and then just trying to get a more feel of like how, I guess, like industry best practices, right? You might hear a lot of like buzzwords and like all these trends, right? And I definitely am a trend follower. So I just like, I have like, I'm following all like the brilliant minds out there, and like whatever they tweet, I'm just like, oh, what is that? What is that? I'm gonna play that. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be, because a big emphasis in this industry is like, it's always going to change. You're always going to have something to learn. You're always going to be behind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think like Twitter is it's a great place to kind of just see influencers who kind of just like tweet out like, what they've been doing. Like if you're interested in like React stuff, like, Kenzie Dodds is like engineer at PayPal. He has some really good write-ups on React stuff.
And is he doing that as a voice of PayPal, or is it him personally?
It's him personally.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, great.
So he does some stuff like he did create some stuff out of PayPal that became open source. So he's an advocate for that too. But he's been doing a lot of other cool things. He's on like Front End Masters and Egghead.io, like those teaching platforms, like the videos. So he's on those, and just understanding like how they think.
Yeah.
And like how they get to because they're like influenced. They you expect them to know what they're doing, so you're just like, oh, you want to read the article and be like, okay, why did he thought about it this way, or why, because right now he's have you ever used Enzyme for your testing for your components?
No, I haven't.
So he's talking about like just he created his own like this testing library for React components.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but it's just like, it's just interesting that like I could just read up on that and like figure out like, okay, why is he doing that?
Yeah.
Right? And I think he just released like a blog or email. Like I'm signed up for his newsletter, and he said like, okay, I'm never gonna use like shallow rendering, which is kind of like just make a shallow render of your component. Well, I don't know too much about that either, because I just write Enzyme. It just does the thing, right? So, yeah.
It does it for me.
Yeah, it does. It's nice that all these libraries just kind of like work out of the box. It takes a little bit of reading the documentation, but once you kind of like get an understanding of like what to do, you just do it, and it's kind of like, it's all happening magically. That's a word we use at work,
magically?
Auto-magically.
So auto-magically.
We just, everything just happens.
Love it,
And you don't know why, but it just works.
It just happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you get to the point, you're just like, all right, I'm just going to code it.
Yeah.
I'm using it for testing, and it's testing my components. It's working. Does my test pass in isolation, unit testing, yada, yada, yada. It's like, okay, cool.
And that really goes back to like the community aspect of coding. Like so much, it's like full circle. Every day you're using other people's code, and every day you're borrowing and being influenced by them.
That's a good thought right there. Yeah,
you're helping to mold those systems too.
Yeah, because that we use it, we kind of like, not in a way like contribute, but since we're actually supporting that. We're kind of like being an advocate, right? And so if I'm saying like, Enzyme, this is what we use at work, and then I learn it really well, I could go out there and do a talk or whatever to contribute and just teach other people, right? Yeah. So I think that's like really cool that you kind of like, went back around and talked about that, because I do think that open source is, I'm a huge believer in open source, even though I don't do it as much. And it's just interesting to see that all these people, giving up like their time to just make this technology even better, right? And that's why like people talk about like, having, was it JavaScript flavor of the month or like JavaScript fatigue, but I'm excited to always see something new, because it's like it's a different solution being applied to maybe the same problem, and you get an idea of like why these maintainers actually address that their way.
We were talking a little bit about how you were creating like different components for your own like CSS framework, or and then we were talking a little bit off camera about like accessibility and UI,
and designers and stuff like that. Just to give the audience what we talked about was basically like, how there's like not like a clash or anything, but like should designers know like the the developing side of things, like what they can actually implement with the designs, or should like front end developers know like a little bit of design. And I think we both kind of agree that they should, you should have some sort of knowledge in that other domain. Like it's not, you don't need to like focus solely on just like front end development and just be like, oh, I don't know design and not how to implement it, because you're just taking some sort of like Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever and just implement that that design. But I think it's important to say like, okay, this button doesn't look right at this screen with like responsive design or whatever, or just something like that. And we were talking about accessibility too, where like sometimes at the place that I work with, we have designers who kind of like add like white text on like light blue background, and that is a huge like no for accessibility. And so like if that designer kind of knew like these things, that technologies on the browser, like what they're looking for, if we don't get hit by that, then they'll be like, okay, well, I know that I can't be using those colors. I need to have that, that contrast. Or they could look at the, WCAG and just see like the whole checklist of like what they need to be compliant, right? And for us as designers, like when you see it, like not like I would say poor design, I guess it's not like a bad design, it's just like a poor design that wouldn't work. Like we should address that and tell the designer, like, hey, this we can't do this. It's not possible. Where like, so
there needs to be definitely a lot more conversation between designers and developers, because their jobs are so intertwined. They need to be in conversation like daily or however long it takes them to come to like a good consensus about what either party can do or should do. Yeah.
And I think like it's really tough, because like it has to also do with the organization as well.
Yes, and that's so true.
Because like, I mean, at my organization, my designers are all the way on the other side of the building, and we just communicate through like our through Google Chat or whatever, Hangouts. But it like we can't really describe our problem when they will have to walk over there, and we can't have that like, hey, just pop over, like, hey, have that really close interaction with them, just kind of like work together on some sort of solution, right? I don't know how many times, but like even with mock-ups, we have mock-ups where like we have so many questions about it, but then like as they're creating these mock-ups and like they think that that's the finalized version or whatever, it'll be easy for like a developer to come in like, no, we can't do that. It'll be
to talk to them about it through the process, not at a finalized stage.
Yeah, exactly. Then they have to go back and change it, or they're just like, oh, like they get frustrated because like we can't do that, or it's not compliant with accessibility or whatever. And so it'll be nice to have that where the organization itself kind of like cultivated that kind of type of culture, right? Like just give you that, like, hey, designers or marketers or whatever, they are kind of like placed not by like the developers, but like in close relation, that they can actually communicate effectively.
Yeah, like physically sitting by them and being able to have at least some time in the day where they can have conversations, and coming in, like it would be better for developers to come in at a stage that was really early on, so they can have a heavy influence on the cross between functionality and design. Yeah,
and I'm just going to say this too, because like not all designers are thinking about not designers, but developers are thinking about design too. So some of the things that designers do, they could get frustrated with developers.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can't speak from their perspective, but I'm pretty sure it's like the same way, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's just I think that we should just be able to kind of like just communicate, or like if you not only communicate, but just kind of like grab a book. Like I have a book that talks about UX, basically user experience, like what a user should expect as soon as they hit like some sort of app or web page. Like does it seem smart? Does it does it make sense? Like just kind of like get that education, so that when you're actually doing the development, you can kind of say like, hey, this is kind of off, or like I kind of see it this way of me kind of like going through, or like maybe being empathetic, because that's what really it is being empathetic when you're trying to like create something, right? Online, and just be like, in the eyes of the people who will be using it, does it does it make sense? Does it make sense?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's about the user. And we were kind of looking at this software that I'm using to record the audio, And I kept clicking on the wrong button because I was having such a difficult time trying to figure out which button meant what. And that alludes to the idea that it's so important to have that user interface that really makes sense. We were also talking earlier about how if you have poor user experience, that people will tend to maybe distrust your website and they may not use it.
Yeah, exactly. So on top of that, like if a user comes to your website and like everything's out of place, there's like a lot of advertisement, there's like no like security badges or anything like that. Like how oftentimes or not you're just gonna be like, okay, see ya, right? Like I'm gonna use something else. So like you gotta think about it in terms of like what these users are experiencing, right? And like you have speed, like the perception of speed, or like how fast your website load, and you have your like UX or your UI. It's like all these different elements that like creates the web page or your website or web app. They're all important.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of stuff to learn, but that's why you have good teams, you build good teams actually, and then just kind of like work together on these solutions.
Oh yeah, and you don't create like a hierarchy, because I know a place that I worked really created a hierarchy where designers were put above developers, and really they're working together. They're working on the same level. They're working on the same end product.
Yeah,
so
that's
unfortunate.
Really important. Yeah,
but that's all right. But, hopefully, talking about these things and creating that more positive like outlook towards working towards like a mutual environment. And again, that goes back to community. Can we build communities where we can? It's such a heavy theme, but
it's interesting when you say like the community part, because like I know like a couple of my friends are trying to build like a design community here.
Oh really?
Yeah,
cool.
So they're trying to build a design community that kind of like embraces all different types of design, because when we say design,
so
it's
broad.
very broad. They like to define it even deeper, like like I said, visual, conversational, I don't know, graphic, print. Like they have all these different designers, and what's specifically hard for like, I'm not sure, like graphic designers or whatnot. Actually, it might. I'm not sure. But I think at Sac State, their graphic design program does a lot with print. So transferring the things that they learn to like the screen, because like this, like on print, it's like very finite. Like the dimension beforehand, and you only want to print like maybe 3 different mediums. Whereas like for online, the browser, or different screen devices, you have to have something responsive. So I think that transition and trying to like learn and how to adapt to that makes it frustrating for like some of these, I guess, visual design.
Yeah, exactly. And all these like new technologies coming out, and the different ways in which we're actually starting to interact with these things. Like we say, like attention spans are decreasing. How do we account for that? How do we make images like appear quicker? Where do we position things differently to grab immediate attention?
There are a lot of different solutions for that. Like when you say like images, like are they loading fast, whatever. Like you have lazy loading now, and now it's like you have a blur effect, or you have an SVG placeholder. Like you have all these different technology where you serve like different file sizes depending on the device width. So it does get interesting when you like start getting into that. Like when you get to that point, you'll start to like, oh man, this is so much just for this one web page. Right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoy being here. Yeah.
It was really good talk, and we did talk off camera too about design and development. So it was really awesome.
Yeah.
I love talking about community with you. You're such like a figurehead. People know your name. They do.
That's I don't know. I feel very uncomfortable about that.
Oh,
but,
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, again, guys, this is Billy Lee, and he uses Facebook and sometimes LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with him on either of those.
Yeah. So my Facebook, if you do like facebook.com/BillyLee.us, that's how you can find me on Facebook. And LinkedIn, I don't even know my URL name, but just type in Billy Lee with 1 E.
Yeah. Cool. And I'll put some links in the description also.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.